Hey, and we're back. And as you can see, today we're working on Dark Angels Space Marines. I'm just doing the line troops today. If I find myself in a position where I need to do some work on something else for a bit, then I have the special characters to work on. But for now, I'm going to concentrate on these guys. And as you can see, I've already got the base colors on, and so it's these three. Nope, sorry, not that one. So what I've got is a base of Caliban green. Caliban green is the new Dark Angels base color. And then what I did, and these the first two coats here are airbrushed on. So the Caliban green airbrushed on just over everything. Then Warpstone Glow, I did directional, really coming down from the top, and then hitting some things that don't get hit when you do this, and that is like the backs of the legs, things like that, things that you want highlighted, but the spray isn't going to fall onto it properly. Tops of the knee cops, things like that. Again, airbrush, and then a coating of Bealtan green shade to give the whole thing, to darken it back down, sort of tie those two colors together. And that's where we are. That's what you're looking at right here, is just those three colors, nothing else. Of course, that's over a black primer base. And so far, I'm happy with where we are. And from here, I think I'm just going to go straight into possibly, I think, lining with Moot Green, which is going to be our extreme highlight liner color, edge highlighting. And after I do that, I'll probably move on to the reds, like on the shoulder pads and such. And at some point I got to figure out what I'm doing with the backpacks and guns and things, as you can see, that are not on here. They are primed and waiting separately. So I'll have to deal with that. Something to note, and if you've been watching these videos, this isn't a surprise, but I've used putty to mask the ends of where the guns go, essentially where the hands attach to the arms. Anywhere where there's going to be glue has been masked. So like his big chesticular area there, his abdomen actually, has a big wad of putty there. It looks like bubble gum. And some of them have it on their backpack areas, but as I noted later on, not all of them got that treatment. So that's okay. That shouldn't really present any kind of real issue there. Yeah, so there we are. I'm going to go start doing some line work, and then I'll come back and talk to you in a bit. As I think I've mentioned several times in my previous videos in this series, I've been using a lot of the Liquitex airbrush medium as a thinner for the Citadel paints, and I kind of thought I'd show you how I use it. And this is, I'm prepping the paint for doing highlighting and lining on the Dark Angels Space Marines. So this is the Liquitex medium. As you can see, it's kind of milky white, and I don't have a like precise calculation for this, but generally I work at about, I'd say 50-50. But frankly, I do this more by feel and by sight than I do by measurement. So you can see I put 3 drops in there, but I'm starting with a sort of a dollop of paint and just mixing the two together and to judge consistency. And yeah, it's still got some thickness to it. I kind of like it like this, I think. We can test it on one of the minis real quick. Just to get a sense of how it's going to work. Oh crap. Stuff moving. All right. That's not bad. It's a little bit on the thin side, but I think that's good. As I'm going to want to be able to build up the highlights a bit as opposed to going full strength, so I can get some gradient to it. And so I think I'm going to work with it as is. So now I'm going to go do that, and we can see what it looks like when that's all done, perhaps. We'll see. So now I've got the highlights on this guy, and I think they turned out pretty well overall. It's pretty subtle in places. What I ended up doing, instead of using a lot of the moot green, I ended up going over it a little heavier with the warpstone glow in the highlight areas, because I needed a better transition between the dark and the light. And then I ended up, because I kind of liked how that looked, I ended up really only using the moot green for more extreme highlights, like the top of the knee cop, anywhere there's a corner, like on the top of his helmet. A little bit of the swoosh across the front of the feet, or boot, actually. So, more of an accent, I guess, than a real highlight. With the highlights really coming from the warpstone glow, and because I'm thinning it down with the medium, I'm getting a nice blend, a nice transition. Then of course I went in with the red, and so as you can see there, maybe let's go back a little bit. There we go. That is the sort of tactical markings. And that is Mephiston red, and then it's been outlined with Evil Sunz Scarlet, which I really like. Looks really good, and that's also, when that's done, is going to have an accent, maybe of Naphthol red light, or maybe even just this is Naphthol red light, or maybe even just an orange from the Citadel line. I'll figure it out when I get there. And of course, since I had the red out, I did the base color on the eye lenses. Really love how that contrasts with the dark green. But that's going to need a couple more steps before that's complete. And yeah, so I'm going to go continue work on the reds. I think that's my next step here. So I will talk to you in a bit. So I got a little tip. I'm moving on to the knee cops, which are the little knee plates, and they're quartered, and they're just ivory and green quarters, but painting a quartered scheme like that can be challenging. And I've seen this done with an airbrush and masking tape, and that's certainly a possibility, but I have chosen to do this by hand. But I started my quartering with one of these Pigma Micron pens, and this is actually a big one. It's an 05. Most of the time I'm using a 005. But the idea here is it's almost like kind of creating just a guide, you know, for your painting. But it also the lines will help separate the colors once you paint it in. So if you try and paint this by hand, you might have a steady hand and you might be able to get it with just doing the paint, but you also won't have that nice clear dividing line between the colors, and I think you're going to like it when you see this finished. So anyway, just wanted to show that to you, and then I'm off to mark the rest of the knees, and I will show you the results when I get paint on there. So as you can see, I've finished up the knees, and they've all gotten that. They've all gotten that treatment. There's essentially two colors to that, and that's Ushtabi bone, and then whatever that color is that's lighter than Ushtabi bone. That, since my pot doesn't have a label on it, I can never remember the name. But I actually start with XV88 underneath it as sort of a way to bring it up from the dark green, because it's really hard to get to put the Ushtabi bone in directly. It's just a little bit too light. It's not a base, so it doesn't cover quite as well. Same thing with the chest wings. It's XV88 and then Ushtabi bone carefully painted onto the feathers. And then we did the shoulder pad symbol, and that is Celestra Gray, highlighted and outlined with Ulthuan Gray, and I really like that effect. It's really nice. It's a good way to get an almost white. I tend to avoid using white altogether most of the time. And so most of the base work on these guys is done. I still need to go in and do the black on these areas. I don't know what you call those. And what else? Oh, I've got to do a final highlight dot on the lenses, the eye lenses. And I think that's it. And then I can move on to backpack. Oh, you know what? The mouth grill needs a little paint. But then I'll be able to move on to the weapons and the weapons and backpacks. Weapons and backpacks, which have not really been touched aside from primer yet. So I think that's next. And but first I need to do those final few things on these guys, and then I'll come back. So as you can see, they're coming along. I think in my next video we'll be looking at the completion of these guys, so you can look forward to that. And with luck, that video will be up shortly after this one. In any case, not too much to say at this point. I have a photo that I took with my phone camera, which came out surprisingly good for a work in progress shot, and I'm going to share that right after this. So stay tuned for a moment, and thanks for watching.